What is going on, everybody? My name is John from Pistons territory. You might know me from the Motor City Metrics Detroit Tigers baseball podcast. Today, I want to talk some Detroit Pistons. This is episode 1 of my Detroit Pistons podcast, Pistons territory. And today, I want to talk about my season grades for the Detroit Pistons 2022-2023 season. I also want to talk about some head coach talk. I know that's kind of the hot topic right now with the Detroit Pistons is who are they going to bring in as their next head coach. So I kind of want to get it kicked off with my head coach talk. But before we get into that, please make sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel at Pistons Territory at YouTube. And yes, very, very much appreciate it. We are on the road to 100 subscribers. So yeah, this is actually my first live stream. So if you guys don't mind, I'm just sharing the live stream real quick before we get started. All right, there we go. So we just shared the live stream. But thank you guys so much for watching and or listening to the Pistons Territory podcast. And let's get it started with some head coaching talk. So, as you know, Dwayne Casey is no longer in as the Detroit Pistons head coach, which I think this is a good move. I think it was about time for Dwayne Casey. Obviously, we all kind of expected him to move into a front office role, and he did. So for me, I'm going to try to keep the head coach talk pretty simple because I think there's a few candidates that really stick out to me. I've seen some people, go into like Jerry Stackhouse, or I've even seen Bill Laimbeer or Chauncey Billups. For me, I think Ime Udoka is the perfect head coach for the Detroit Pistons. I know he had his problems in Boston, but if he can put that behind him, at the end of the day, I think you need young head coaches in the NBA. That is, I think, where the league is going. You know, the NBA is a star-driven league. Okay, so I don't know how much head coaching really matters, but what does matter is you need somebody who's going to be able to connect with their young players, who's going to be able to motivate them. And I think Ime Udoka would be that perfect fit for the Detroit Pistons. Like I said, I want a younger head coach, and I think he would be the perfect guy for them. So I don't know how long this head coaching search is going to go. Obviously, they're going to do their due diligence. But I'm at the point now where I would be pretty surprised if it's anyone but Ime Udoka, because I just think the writing is on the wall there. It's a perfect fit. I have heard Nick Nurse. I think that is kind of interesting as well, but I do think he's probably going to end up staying with Toronto. So yeah, that's kind of my quick thoughts on the head coaching search. I think it's going to be Ime Udoka, and I'd be pretty shocked if it's anybody else but him. So let me know if there's any other head coaching candidates I'm missing. But I just think right now he just stands out as the clear favorite. And I do think it is a really, really good fit, Udoka on the Pistons. He has, experience coaching in an NBA finals, which I think is just so valuable, especially for a young team like the Detroit Pistons. So that's my quick thoughts on the head coaching search. I honestly have no idea when they're going to announce it, but I do think it's going to be Ime Udoka, and I do think it'll probably be sooner rather than later. But with that being said, I want to get into my season grades for the Detroit Pistons. I do have an article on woodwardsports.com if you guys want to check it out. The article version of this for my season grades. So I did 8 players. I did the 8 main players for the Detroit Pistons. So I didn't do players like Corey Joseph or Rodney Magruder or even Isaiah Livers. I kind of did my 8 main guys, and those guys are Jaden Ivey, Jalen Duren, Killian Hayes, James Wiseman, Isaiah Stewart, Marvin Bagley, Bogey, and Alec Burks were my 8 main guys I did for my season grades. So, and obviously no Cade Cunningham, right? We can't really grade his season. So let's get it started at the top with Jaden Ivey. His rookie season averaged over 16 points a game, 42% from the field, 34% from three. My season grade for Jaden Ivey's rookie year is an A. Now, the reason I'm giving him an A is, well, I just read his stats, but it's pretty self-explanatory. As a rookie, it is very impressive what he was able to do pretty much as the number one option on this team. He was the go-to scorer Bogey was the number one option, but Ivey had the ball in his hands the most. He was expected to create the most offense for this team. And as a rookie, what he was able to do was very, very, very impressive. So, like I said, 34% from three. And yes, I can't say enough about him. His 3-point shooting was so much better than I thought. 34%, man. If he can continue to build on that, I never really expected him to be a great 3-point shooter. I thought if he could get closer to 40, that would be great. But the fact that he was almost at 35% his rookie year, I think is really, really good sign for him moving forward. So yeah, in my article, I said Jaden Ivey could have multiple All-Star level seasons left in him, and I think that's true. I think Jaden Ivey can be a multiple-time All-Star for the Detroit Pistons, and I'm not gonna say I saw some people say he's like one of the better picks of that draft class. I don't know about that because we know Paolo Banchero is still the best pick. We don't know what Chet Holmgren is gonna be, but you could really make the case that Jaden Ivey is the third best player, or right now probably is the second best player in that draft class. And yes, out of everyone on the Detroit Pistons, even Cade Cunningham, I have the most trust in Jaden Ivey just because of what I saw from him out of his rookie year, his durability, playing 73 games. Just so much good stuff from Jaden Ivey. I really have nothing negative to say about him. Like, he just ticks all the boxes. He's an exciting player. And yes, I don't know if I would go that he would make an all NBA team in the future, but I think it's a very, very realistic possibility. But my prediction, Jaden Ivey will make at least 3 All-Star teams. I think he can be at least a 3-time All-Star in his future, and hopefully it's with the Detroit Pistons. So yes, my grade for Jaden Ivey is an A. And if I just want to give a quick preview for next season, I don't really know what we could expect from Jaden Ivey next year. Like 20 points per game is a lot to ask for him, especially with Cade Cunningham coming back. But if Jaden Ivey could average 17, 18 points a game, get his efficiencies up, maybe get closer to 40% from three, cut the turnovers down a little bit, I think that would go a long way in Jaden Ivey in his sophomore season. But yes, incredible, incredible rookie year for Jaden Ivey, and I'm giving it an A. So up next, we have Jalen Duren, the other Detroit Pistons rookie. Obviously, fantastic trade by Troy Weaver to get the big man. Obviously, one of the youngest players in the league. So for Jalen Duren's rookie year, I'm giving him an A as well. Absolutely fantastic rookie year from him. Obviously, his playing time was very, very inconsistent. Obviously, with injuries, and then the Pistons brought in James Wiseman. He was in and out of the starting lineup. Obviously, Isaiah Stewart was injured as well. But Jalen Duren averaged essentially 9 points and 9 rebounds, which almost a double-double in his rookie season is very, very, very impressive. And yes, I think he is a core piece for the Detroit Pistons moving forward. I don't know if I would say he's going to be a future All-Star just because he's so incredibly raw. And I think it's very, very early to tell what he could be for the Detroit Pistons. His shooting ability is just not there right now. Obviously, like I said, he's still very, very young. We're going to have to see if his shooting is ever going to come around. Even if he can be a decent enough mid-range shooter, I think that would go a long way. And Jalen Duren becoming an all-star. But as of right now, I'm not going to go, say he has an all-star level future. But I think he could be a guy that averages maybe 15 points a game, obviously double-digit rebounds. And yes, just kind of be the prototypical big man you want in the NBA. So Jalen Duren, I think, has a very, very bright future. There's some other big men on the Pistons I want to get to in a little bit. But in terms of my expectations for Duren next year, obviously, I think he's going to get most of his starts at center. I think he's going to lead the Pistons in starts at center next year. And I think he can average a double-double. I think that's realistic. And yes, I think by the third or fourth year, we could honestly see him maybe get some all-star consideration if things go well for the Detroit Pistons. So Jalen Duren, his rookie season, I'm going to give him an A. So next player is a very, very controversial player. It's a guy I want to get into, and I know a lot of people are going to have a lot of things to say about this player, and that is Killian Hayes. Now, I've been a Killian Hayes defender since day one, and I still am, and I know a lot of people aren't. A lot of people have jumped on the hate train for Killian Hayes. But for me, for Killian, I'm giving him a C+, which maybe some people will agree. I think a lot of people might disagree with that. Listen, here's the thing with Killian Hayes. He showed a lot of improvement this year, a ton of improvement in his third season. Okay, and the other thing, I know people are going to look at the shooting splits, 37% from the field, I believe 27 or 28% from three. Yes, those are terrible, but Killian Hayes should not have been playing against starters this year. You have to take that into account. in a perfect world, Cade Cunningham would have been on the Pistons and Killian Hayes would have been playing against bench players. So you have to take that into account. I think if Killian Hayes was coming off the bench like he should have been, those percentages would probably be a little bit better and a little bit more respectable to the point where maybe he could have shot 40% from the field and, the shooting splits wouldn't be such a big talking point. But other than that, Killian Hayes averaged 6.2 assists per game, a career high, to just 2.3 turnovers a game. That is almost a 3-to-1 assist to turnover ratio, which is very, very good, especially for a 21-year-old point guard. And I don't know. I don't understand the hate for him. He's just 21 years old. He also averaged 1.4 steals a game as well. And listen, I've gotten to the point with Killian Hayes is I still believe he's going to be a starter in this league. I think he is going to be good enough to be a average, maybe a borderline starting point guard in the NBA. It's not gonna be for the Detroit Pistons. Obviously, he's not gonna start with Cade Cunningham and Jaden Ivey gonna be there. But I'm not giving up on Killian Hayes as a player. I've just sort of given up on him as a Detroit Piston. But to say that there hasn't been improvement, to say that this season for his third season has been a complete disappointment is just not true. Because there was a lot of improvement. Like I said, career high in assists, very good assist to turnover ratio. Obviously, the defense has been there. And the shooting percentage, that's really what he needs to work on. Is just becoming a more efficient scorer. If he does that, he's becomes pretty much the player we wanted him to be. And I say we wanted him to be because some people, they still look at him with the number 7 pick and say, oh, he needs to be a really good point guard in this league, an all-star. Killian Hayes is never going to be an all-star, okay? But if he, like I said, can be an above average starting point guard or just a solid starting point guard, I think that's a very valuable pick, because what he does for your team with his passing, with his defense. So, yes, Killian Hayes did not have a disappointing season. I don't care what anyone says. I don't care that he shot 37% from the field. If he shot 40% from the field, would we all be saying his season was disappointing? I don't think so. And the other thing, too, is we saw the stretches of games that he had. He had like an 8 to 10 game stretch where he looked really, really good. I remember at one point he was averaging like 16 points a game during a short stretch during the season. And, when players show you those flashes, you have to believe them. Obviously, consistency is what makes NBA players great, but he's 21 years old. Like, I think we have to take that into account. So Killian Hayes, wow, some people might say it was a disappointment. I don't think so. And will he be on the Pistons next year? I hope so, because I think the Pistons have two options here. They can go out and they can sign a veteran point guard. No one really coming to mind right now for me, but yeah, maybe a veteran point guard for like $8 to $12 million and give them minutes off the bench. Or you can give it to Killian Hayes, which to me, there's no reason to sign a veteran point guard this year. I'm not going to get into my, what I expect from the Pistons next year because we really don't know what the team's going to look like. But I don't expect the Detroit Pistons to be contending for a playoff spot next year. I don't expect them to be contenders in the Eastern Conference. So give Killian Hayes as many minutes as you can. And you know what? If Killian Hayes comes off the bench next year and shoots under 40%, all right, then I think at that point you've given him enough. You've given him his full rookie contract, and then you can look to move on. But I think giving up on him after 3 years, I still think is too early for Killian Hayes. So Killian Hayes, my season grade for him is a C+. Let me know if you guys agree or disagree with that. And yes, I still expect big things from him. I still expect him to be an impact player in this league for a very, very long time. And I really do hope he's with the Pistons next season. So my next player is James Wiseman. C+ valid. Hey, it's my boy Mateo. C+ is valid, and Mateo agrees. So my next player is James Wiseman. Played 24 games with the Pistons this year, obviously in the Saddiq Bey trade. And I'll be honest, when the Saddiq Bey trade happened, I was kind of on the fence about it. And then the first couple games of James Wiseman, I was like, damn, I really like James Wiseman. But now I'm at the point, I kind of wish they would have kept Saddiq Bey. I don't know about you guys. Saddiq Bey looked really, really good with the Hawks this year, and I predicted this to happen. I said once Saddiq Bey, would play on a good team, and he started getting better shots, obviously not having to do as much with the offense, his percentages would go up, and they did. I know he shot over 40% from three with the Hawks. I believe his season he finished 36% from three, which if you would have told me that at the beginning of the year as a Detroit Piston, I would have said 36% from three. That's a very good season for Saddiq Bey. So I don't know. I still want to give Wiseman a chance. He played 24 games, and he did have some good games. He averaged 12.7 points per game, 8.1 rebounds a game. And yes, he did have some moments where you were really, really impressed with him. But I still think the Detroit Pistons, their biggest need right now is at the wing. They need that wing that can space the floor and create their own offense. And maybe Sadiq Bey wasn't that, but I don't know. I'm still really on the fence with this Sadiq Bey and James Wiseman trade. I hope Wiseman is here next year. Obviously, we're going to have Jalen Duren. Hopefully, Isaiah Stewart's still here. Maybe Marvin Bagley's still here. But I don't know, man. It's too early to tell on James Wiseman. He hasn't even played 100 NBA games yet. So he's essentially, what is he, in his second year, playing time-wise. But I gave him a B- for the Detroit Pistons. Like I said, there were some flashes. What really impressed me was his shooting. He shot 71% from the free throw line. And to me, if he's willing to take those shots, I don't think he's ever going to be an average three-point shooter or even above average. But the fact that he's willing to take it, I think he could be a good mid-range shooter for the Detroit Pistons, and kind of what I want to see from Jalen Duren. Just being able to stretch it out to the mid-range and open up the floor. So he does deserve a full season in Detroit, and I think there were some positives to take away from James Wiseman. But I don't know. I think next season is going to be a big, big year for him. Obviously, it's going to be the end of his rookie contract with the Pistons. And like I said, just 22 years old. But I do think he did enough to give himself another chance in Detroit. So my season grade for James Wiseman is going to be a B-. Moving on to Isaiah Stewart. He had a very, very interesting third season in the NBA. It was just so up and down. Obviously, it started off pretty good. Opening night, he hit that corner three, and his three-point shooting was just so up and down all season. He finished at 32.7% from three on 4.1 attempts per game. So 4.1 attempts a game, that is a pretty good sample size, considering I believe his second year, he wasn't even averaging 1 3 a game. I believe he was averaging like 0.7 threes per game his second season. But I think we've come to the point with Isaiah Stewart, at least for me, he is what he is. He's not athletic. He doesn't have great size. He's only 6'8". He's not going to be your center of the future. We all know that. Pretty much, I think we've gotten to the point he's a bench player. And if the only way I could see him becoming a starter is if he improves his three-point shooting. And he did improve it substantially this year, and I think he can continue to improve it. I'm not out on Isaiah Stewart. I just think his role is going to sort of diminish as the years go by. Obviously, with Jalen Duren being there, with James Wiseman potentially being there, and I do think they're going to draft a wing. So, yeah, I don't think Isaiah Stewart is going to play a big role on this team. I think he's going to be a guy that comes off the bench, gives you 15 to 20 minutes per game, gives you energy, and I do think he'll be here next year. And I don't know, I just don't have a lot to say about him. His season was just very meh. And I think we've kind of gotten to the point with him where this is kind of who he is. He's going to be a solid rebounder, a good enough defender. Obviously, some centers are going to give him problems because he just doesn't have the size. And obviously, some wings are going to give him problems. He's a solid wing defender at 6'8". But yeah, I gave him a C, like just kind of mid, honestly. If he can shoot 35% from three next year, I think that's an improvement. I don't know. In terms of like a second contract for him, if the Pistons want to bring him back, I don't even know how much I would really give him. Like, is he worth 10 million a year? Probably, maybe like 12 million a year, but I think he's a bench piece for this team moving forward, and that's probably all he's going to be. And no offense to Isaiah Stewart, but on a contending team, is Isaiah Stewart really going to start or play a significant role on a contending team? Like, you look at some of these teams in the playoffs, Isaiah Stewart, like on the Boston Celtics or on the Milwaukee Bucks, he's probably playing 10 to 15 minutes a game as a backup big. Like, that's, I feel like, what his ceiling is going to be in the NBA. So he's a solid player. Obviously, we all love him. But yeah, I'm going to give him a C, and I don't really expect a lot more improvement from him moving forward. It really is just going to depend on how good he can be as a shooter. So if we want to move on to another big man, this is Marvin Bagley. I did try to keep these grades pretty positive. Obviously, I gave Ivy and Duren an A. But this one, Marvin Bagley, I kind of went on the negative side here. I gave him a D plus. And Marvin Bagley, listen, he's 24 years old. He's getting to the point where he's almost entering the prime of his career. And Marvin Bagley didn't do anything for me this year. Only played 42 games. And the thing was, even in those 42 games, he didn't look like that great of a player. Like, you have to take into account the Pistons are a bad team. So, like, it reminds me of the Jahlil Okafor in Philadelphia. Like, Jahlil Okafor was never a great player, but on the Sixers his rookie year, he averaged 17 plus points a game. Like, he looked like a star on a bad team. To me, if Marvin Bagley is going to be an impact player for the Pistons, he has to look like a borderline star for them. And he just didn't look like that this year. Like, if he's looking like a rotational piece on a 17 win team in the NBA, I think that says a lot about his future moving forward. Like, 12 points a game, 6.4 rebounds a game. His 3-point percentage was under 30%. Like, Marvin Bagley is just it's just met. Like, I've gone over this before. He's not a good enough defender, not a good enough rebounder to be a center, but he's not, athletic enough. He's not quick enough to be a wing. He's just in the middle, and I don't know what to expect from him. He's making $16 million next year. I believe he has a team option after that. Marvin Bagley, will he be on this team next year? Honestly, I'm at the point I'd rather just give minutes to our other big men. I'm at the point where just give the minutes to Isaiah Stewart, give the minutes to James Wiseman. Like, Marvin Bagley, this is who he is. He's 12 points, 6 rebounds, and he's not going to give you much on the defensive end. And like I said, you put him on one of the better teams in the NBA. You put him on the Celtics, on the Bucks. How many minutes is he realistically going to get? Maybe, like I said, 10 to 15. So I'm kind of out on Marvin Bagley. Maybe you keep him around just because of the contract. But like I said, I don't even know if there's any contenders that are really going to want that $16 million contract. So yeah, I gave him a D plus, and I don't know if he'll be here next year, but if it was up to me, I do hope they move on from him in the offseason. However, they may do that. Maybe they're just going to trade his bad contract for maybe another bad contract or something like that. But yeah, Marvin Bagley, this is who he is, unfortunately. This is since his rookie year, his numbers have looked essentially the same. There hasn't been really any improvement. I like him as a player and as a person, but I don't know. I think it's time to move on. And then my last two grades, I just did the two veterans of the Detroit Pistons, and that is Bogdan Bogdanovic and Alec Burks. I gave them both A's. I don't really know if you could expect anything more out of these two guys. Bogdan Bogdanovic was fantastic. Like, I know Utah was good this year, and I know Kelly Olynyk played. He started for them most of the year. And but even then, Bojan Bogdanovic averaged almost 22 points a game, shot 48% from the field, over 40% from three. Like, he was just fantastic. And obviously, age, you do worry about his age a little bit. You worry about him getting injured. Obviously, I think that's why they sat him at the end of this season. But he's fantastic. He gets you a first round pick. He can maybe even get you a first round pick and more. Maybe, I don't know how much more, but maybe like a first round pick and a couple second round picks, or maybe an interesting young player that the Pistons could give a chance to, like RJ Hampton, for example. But yeah, you couldn't have asked for anything more from him. He was absolutely fantastic. Like, I'll give him an A plus. Like, he literally could not have done anything more for the Detroit Pistons this year. So I'm giving him an A. And then Alec Burks, I gave an A2 too. He played around 50 games this year, shot 41% from three. I do hope Alec Burks is on the team next season. I do think he's a perfect player to come off the bench and knock down threes. He's, like I said, he fits perfectly with Cade. He fits perfectly with Ivy. And he does have a player option or team option for next year. They will pick it up, and we have heard some extensions talks with him. Maybe they extend him. I don't know if you can get a first-round pick for Alec Burks, but I do think him and Bojan are the perfect veterans to keep on this team. So I gave both of them an A for my season grades. But yeah, so those are my season grades to go over really, really quick. Jaden Ivey, I gave an A. Jalen Duren, I gave an A. Killian Hayes, C+. James Wiseman, B-. Isaiah Stewart, C. Marvin Bagley, D+. And then Bogey and Alec Burks, an A. And then the other guys on the roster, obviously Corey Joseph, I don't care. Who else? Rodney Magruder got some minutes. Rodney Magruder, maybe he'll be here next year. The only other guy you could maybe give a grade to is Isaiah Livers, but I can't remember like anything he did this year. He was so inconsistent, so in and out of the lineup. Like I would probably give him a D plus as well. Obviously, I think Troy Weaver has a pretty big crush on Isaiah Livers. Um, I do still hope he's with the team next season, but I do hope they address the wing, obviously in the draft and maybe in free agency. Um, yeah, but Isaiah Livers, pretty disappointing year for me, especially he was an older rookie when he got drafted. I believe he's 23, 24 years old. Really hasn't made that much of an impact for the Detroit Pistons. And then RJ Hampton, it's crazy to me. RJ Hampton was one of the most hyped players in that draft class. I remember there was talks about the Pistons drafting him in the draft. They took Killian Hayes. He really didn't show you much of anything. He's just a very, very average player. Nothing really stands out. He's a decent ball handler. He's an okay shooter. So yeah, RJ Hampton, I don't think he's going to be back next season either. So yeah, those are kind of just the fringe players that I really didn't give a grade to, but I wanted to touch on real quick. But that's all I got for you guys today. This was episode 1 of the Pistons Territory podcast. I'll be back at it sometime soon. We'll be talking the draft. We'll be talking free agency. I think it'll be a pretty interesting offseason for the Detroit Pistons. So yeah, thank you guys for tuning in, for listening and or watching on YouTube. Let me know what you guys thought about the Detroit Pistons season. Obviously only 17 wins, but I do think there were some individual performances that you could look at and be pretty happy with. So yeah, those are my season grades. Let me know your season grades, and also let me know what you guys think of the head coaching search. Like I said, I think it's Ime Udoka or bust. But I'm John from Pistons Territory. I'm gonna get on out of here. Thank you guys for watching and or listening. I'll see you guys in the next one.